the shadow of a warrior queen in a storm-tossed Africa. If there is one historical tale that could make even the most powerful kings of Europe pause in respect, it is the story of Queen Nzinga, the woman who turned the small Central African kingdoms of Ndongo and Matamba into an unyielding fortress for more than 4 decades. But the question remains, how could a woman in the 17th century, in a land besieged by conflict, the slave trade, and the crushing pressure of the Portuguese Empire, hold her throne until her final breath? We begin in the early 1600s. The African continent is in one of its most turbulent eras. European powers, especially Portugal, have sunk their claws deep into the western and central coasts of Africa. From Luanda, in present-day Angola, Portuguese traders and officials seek gold, but above all, they hunt people. Slaves are the most lucrative commodity, and the routes to Brazil, the Caribbean, and Europe run red with blood and tears. Ndongo, a Kimbundu-speaking kingdom once powerful through trade and tribal alliances, now faces a bitter choice: bow to Portugal or be crushed. In this climate, a young princess named Nzinga emerges. Born into the Mband royal family, Nzinga was raised not only in courtly rituals but also in the arts of war, politics, and diplomacy. Stories say that from a young age she could handle a spear, draw a bow, and ride a horse as well as any male warrior. The shadows deepen with division inside the royal family. Nzinga's brother, King Ndongo, is under increasing pressure from Portuguese forces and rival tribes. Unfair treaties, lopsided battles, and a constant stream of captured people shipped overseas threaten to destroy Ndongo entirely. In this desperate hour, Nzinga is not just a princess. She is the last strategic card the Mband dynasty can play. Then, in the fateful year of 1622, Nzinga is sent as an envoy to Luanda to negotiate directly with the Portuguese governor. That meeting, and the way she astonished her adversaries, would mark the opening act of a reign defined by cunning diplomacy, fierce warfare, and unshakable pride. But before we step into the battlefield, we must first understand the woman herself and the roots of her power, the very foundation of one of Africa's most unbreakable legends. To understand Queen Nzinga's reign, we must step deeper into the world that shaped her. A world of complex alliances, deep-rooted traditions, and dangerous political landscapes. Her rise was not an accident of birth alone. It was the product of a network of people, ideas, and cultural forces that intertwined to forge an extraordinary leader. The royal bloodline and the Mband dynasty. Nzinga was born around 1583 into the royal Mband family, rulers of Ndongo. Her father, Ngola Kiluwanji Kiasamba, was a warrior king known for his fierce resistance to Portuguese encroachment. The title Ngola was not just a name. It was the royal title of Ndongo's monarchs, a symbol of authority recognized across the Kimbundu-speaking world. Her early life in the royal court exposed her to the mechanics of leadership, ceremonial rites, legal disputes, tribal diplomacy, and the rhythms of the marketplace. But Ndongo was never a quiet court. Rival factions within the kingdom constantly vied for influence, and Portuguese emissaries lurked like predators, offering gifts in one hand and threats in the other. Her siblings and early political intrigue. Nzinga's brother, Ndongo, inherited the throne at a time when Ndongo was already weakened. His rule was plagued by military losses and the capture of countless Ndongo citizens to feed the Portuguese slave trade. Historical accounts suggest that he distrusted Nzinga, perhaps fearing her intelligence and influence, and even had her son killed to eliminate a rival claim to the throne. Yet, despite these personal tragedies, Nzinga did not retreat into obscurity. Instead, she honed her skills as an orator and diplomat, understanding that survival in such a climate required more than martial strength. It demanded psychological warfare. The Portuguese presence. By the early 1600s, Portugal's colonial foothold in Angola was anchored in Luanda, where governors, Jesuit missionaries, and slave traders formed an intricate web of power. Their military campaigns, supported by firearms and African allies from coastal regions, threatened to dismantle inland kingdoms like Ndongo. But the Portuguese also depended on local rulers for trade and safe passage, a weakness Nzinga would later exploit with remarkable skill. The cultural fabric of Ndongo and Matamba. To the Kimbundu people, leadership was not just about ruling territory. It was about embodying the spiritual and cultural heritage of the land. Kings and queens were seen as intermediaries between the living and the ancestors. Traditional religion, with its rituals, spirit mediums, and sacred symbols, played a crucial role in legitimizing authority. In Ndongo, women could hold positions of power both in governance and in the military, though Nzinga's ascent to the throne would still be extraordinary by any measure. She grew up in a culture where oral tradition preserved the memory of past heroes, and where alliances could be sealed with a marriage, a ritual oath, or a symbolic exchange of gifts. The looming test. By 1622, when she was dispatched to Luanda as an envoy, Nzinga carried with her not just the hopes of her people, but the accumulated wisdom of her culture, the resilience of personal loss, and the strategic mind of a leader in waiting. The meeting she was about to attend would test every one of these qualities, and would give rise to one of the most famous images in African diplomatic history. We will witness that decisive encounter, the high-stakes negotiation where Nzinga's intelligence and pride left the Portuguese governor stunned, and where her legend truly began to take shape. The year was 1622. The air in Luanda was thick with the scent of the Atlantic and the tension of high politics. Portuguese galleons floated in the harbor, their decks heavy with cannon and cargo. Jesuit priests moved through the streets. Slave pens crowded with human misery stood as silent witnesses to a thriving but brutal trade. Into this charged environment rode Princess Nzinga, sent as an envoy by her brother, King Ngolamband, to negotiate peace. The stakes were monumental. The Portuguese sought to secure their control over Ndongo's territory and people, while Nzinga's mission was to halt slave raids, recover captured citizens, and gain recognition of Ndongo's sovereignty. Failure would mean further devastation for her homeland. The iconic moment. When Nzinga entered the governor's audience chamber, she immediately faced a calculated insult. The Portuguese had provided no chair for her, expecting her to stand, a subtle but deliberate assertion of superiority. Without hesitation, Nzinga motioned to one of her attendants, who knelt down on hands and knees. She then sat gracefully upon her human throne and looked the governor in the eye, utterly unmoved. It was a masterstroke, a clear message that she would meet the Portuguese as an equal, not as a subordinate. That single gesture became one of the most enduring symbols of African resistance and political defiance. Negotiating with steel and silk. Nzinga was not merely theatrical. She was strategic. She spoke fluent Portuguese, having learned it earlier in life, and used it to her advantage. She framed her demands not as pleas but as terms between sovereigns: the return of lands seized by Portuguese forces, the release of Ndongo captives taken for the slave trade, a cessation of hostilities and mutual recognition of borders. The governor, impressed and perhaps unsettled by her composure and intelligence, agreed to a treaty. Part of this agreement included Nzinga's conversion to Christianity, a move that, while controversial at home, was a calculated diplomatic maneuver to strengthen relations with Portugal. She was baptized as Ana de Souza, taking the name of her godmother, the governor's wife. The fragile peace. For a brief moment, it seemed as if peace was possible. Portuguese forces withdrew from certain territories, and Ndongo experienced a respite from the constant warfare. Yet Nzinga, ever the realist, understood that Portugal's promises were only as strong as their current needs. She prepared for the inevitable breach of the treaty. Indeed, the peace unraveled within a few years. The Portuguese resumed their expansion, slave raids continued, and internal instability in Ndongo grew worse. In 1626, King Ngolamband died, some sources say by suicide, leaving the throne in crisis. The moment Nzinga had long been preparing for had arrived. She would not simply inherit a kingdom. She would seize it, reforge it, and turn it into a bastion of defiance that would challenge Portuguese power for the next 40 years. In Part 4, we will see the consequences of this political shift, how Nzinga took the crown, transformed her rule into a mobile, guerrilla-style resistance, and navigated alliances that stretched from the African interior to Dutch colonial powers. When King Ngolamband died in 1626, Ndongo teetered on the edge of collapse. The Portuguese were pushing harder than ever. Rival African kingdoms were testing Ndongo's defenses, and internal factions were ready to tear the royal court apart. In such chaos, the path to the throne was anything but smooth. Nzinga, however, had already mastered the art of surviving political storms, and now she would master the art of ruling through them, seizing the crown. Some accounts say that Nzinga claimed the throne as the rightful heir. Others suggest she eliminated rivals, including a young nephew, to secure her rule. Whatever the truth, her coronation was not simply a royal ritual. It was a declaration of intent. She was no placeholder queen. She was a commander. She dressed in warrior regalia, armed herself with a bow or spear, and stood before her people as both monarch and military leader. A kingdom on the move. Under relentless Portuguese attacks, Nzinga understood that a fixed capital was a vulnerability. She transformed her government into a mobile court, moving through the forests and savannas, striking where the enemy was weakest, vanishing before counterattacks could land. This was more than survival. It was a shift in military strategy that allowed her to wage a war of attrition for decades. Her forces were not merely soldiers from Ndongo. She built coalitions of escaped slaves, displaced peoples, and warriors from allied tribes. For many, Nzinga was not just a queen. She was a liberator, a living embodiment of resistance against European domination. The alliance with Matamba. By the early 1630s, Nzinga had extended her influence over the neighboring kingdom of Matamba, a strategic stronghold controlling vital trade routes in Central Africa. She seized its throne, whether by force or political maneuver, and merged it with Ndongo under her rule. From Matamba, she could threaten Portuguese supply lines and intercept caravans bound for the slave ports. Society under Nzinga's rule. Life under Nzinga was marked by both hardship and pride. The constant state of war meant that resources were stretched thin, and people lived in a world where loyalty and adaptability were matters of survival. Yet, her charisma and reputation inspired fierce devotion. Oral traditions tell of her leading troops into battle herself, riding at the front with weapons in hand, her voice rallying warriors across the plains. Women in her army were not merely support staff. Many were trained fighters. Nzinga's reign challenged Portuguese notions of gender and power, creating an enduring image of African queenship that was both political and military in nature. The wider world takes notice. News of Nzinga's defiance spread beyond Angola. Portuguese governors labeled her a dangerous rebel. Dutch traders saw in her a potential ally against Iberian rivals. And among African communities, she became a symbol of what determined leadership could achieve in the face of overwhelming odds. But even as she strengthened her position, the war was far from over. In the next phase of her reign, Nzinga would gamble on foreign alliances, shifting the balance of power in Angola and forcing the Portuguese into one of their most challenging confrontations in Africa. We will uncover the lessons, cultural legacy, and enduring values of Nzinga's struggle, and how her name still carries power centuries after her death. Queen Nzinga's reign did not simply resist the Portuguese. It rewrote the rules of leadership in a time when the odds seemed impossible. Her story holds lessons not only for African history, but for any people who have faced overwhelming external power and refused to submit. Lessons in leadership. Nzinga's life demonstrates that leadership is as much about adaptability as it is about strength. She understood when to wield the sword and when to extend the olive branch, and that both could be equally powerful weapons. Her negotiation in Luanda showed the importance of psychological dominance in diplomacy. Her mobile court strategy demonstrated that survival often depends on rethinking tradition, even when it means breaking with centuries of precedent. And her integration of diverse peoples into her army proved that unity can be built across lines of language, culture, and origin when there is a shared cause. The cultural legacy. In the oral histories of Angola, Nzinga is remembered not as a victim of colonial pressure, but as a warrior queen who matched European cunning with African resilience. Her image has been immortalized in folk songs, proverbs, and plays. Statues of her stand today in Luanda, a reminder that before European domination, African rulers were active players in the shaping of their own destinies. Her reign also influenced gender perceptions. In a period when European patriarchal norms were being enforced alongside colonial rule, Nzinga proved that women could command armies, lead nations, and negotiate on equal footing with kings and governors. Her example still inspires African feminists, historians, and activists who fight for representation and leadership in modern society. Diplomacy beyond borders. Nzinga's ability to play European rivals against each other, particularly her alliance with the Dutch against the Portuguese in the 1640s, reveals a deep understanding of global politics long before international relations became an academic field. She saw the Atlantic world not as a one-way street of European dominance, but as a chessboard on which African states could maneuver, given the right strategy and alliances. Lasting values for modern times. From her reign, 3 enduring values emerge. Strategic patience, understanding that victory often comes through endurance rather than quick wins. Cultural pride, using tradition not as a cage, but as a source of legitimacy and unity. Courage in adversity, leading from the front, even in the most dangerous moments, to inspire trust and loyalty. Nzinga died in 1663 at the age of 81, a remarkable lifespan for her era. Unlike many of her contemporaries, she died on her throne, still sovereign of Matamba and Ndongo, having resisted the Portuguese for over 4 decades. We will bring the journey full circle, summarizing her life, opening questions that still puzzle historians, and considering how her story might guide Africa's future in the face of new forms of power and influence. From the day she walked into the governor's audience chamber in Luanda and turned a calculated insult into a declaration of equality, to the moment she breathed her last breath in 1663, Queen Nzinga stood as a towering figure in African history. Her life was a journey through war, diplomacy, betrayal, and triumph, a testament to how willpower and vision can bend the arc of history. Summing up the journey, Nzinga's 40-year reign over Ndongo and Matamba was more than a sequence of battles and treaties. It was a long campaign of survival against an empire backed by ships, guns, and a vast transatlantic trade network. Through mobility, alliances, and unshakable authority, she not only preserved her sovereignty, but also turned her small kingdoms into a sanctuary for escaped slaves and refugees from across Central Africa. Her success was not absolute. She could not entirely halt the slave trade, nor could she permanently repel Portuguese expansion. Yet, she delayed it long enough for generations to remember that resistance was possible. In this way, Nzinga's reign became a psychological victory as much as a political one. The mysteries that remain. Even today, historians debate parts of her story. Did she truly have her nephew executed to secure her throne? Or is that a slanderous detail added by enemies? Were some of the more brutal tales about her rule exaggerated by Portuguese chroniclers to undermine her legacy? And how much of her military success was due to her own strategies versus the shifting alliances of the time? These unanswered questions keep Nzinga's figure both legendary and human, a blend of recorded fact and oral tradition, her image refracted through centuries of storytelling. Why she still matters. Nzinga's story is more than history. It is a mirror for Africa's present and future. The challenges she faced, foreign domination, economic exploitation, the need for unity among divided communities, are not relics of the past. Today, nations navigate global systems of trade, diplomacy, and power that still echo the dynamics of the 17th century. In this light, Nzinga is not just a heroine of Angola. She is a symbol for any leader or people confronting larger, stronger forces and refusing to be erased. An invitation to reflection. When you stand before her statue in Luanda today, it is easy to imagine her gaze fixed not on the past, but on the horizon. Perhaps she is still watching, still weighing the moves of empires and the resilience of nations. Perhaps she is silently asking us, will you stand as I did? Will you fight not only to survive, but to lead? Her story ends in 1663, but the questions it raises are far from answered. But is that truly the whole story? Or are there chapters of Queen Nzinga's life still waiting to be rediscovered?